Imagine if you said to the church worship leader, every week you have to create new music.
That's the gift, I think, of United Methodism. We are shaped and formed by a community that is not limited to our local community.
This isn't someone that's against me. It's someone that deeply loves their church.
But just being open about the vast amount of content we create and not having to recreate it all the time, but really sharing.
This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hi, and welcome back to Pod Strangely Warmed. I'm Daniel Hawkins, your host, and it's great to be back. Thank you to Pastor Melissa for leading last week's episode from the All Together Bold Women's Retreat. Melissa, we got to talk, though. Your episode's doing way better numbers than mine have the recent days, and I'm struggling with that. You need to know. But in all seriousness, fantastic job. It was an incredible conversation, and we hope to have an incredible conversation today. We are celebrating the gift of our connection as we gather together. One of the things that makes us United Methodist is to be people who live in connection and in community with our clergy, with our laity, and many of you do not know yet, but we know, sitting around this table, we have an incredible community of folks from across the United Methodist Connection. And so as we get started, Mark and Yvi are joining us all the way from Missouri. Yvi came repping.
That's right.
Alan is from the southernmost end of the Horizon Texas Conference down in Georgetown. And so as we get started, can you take just a second to introduce yourself to our Pod Strangely Warm family? Mark, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Mark, and I am the Director of Congregational Development. I just love driving around to the churches in Missouri and supporting people, trying to help them grow or plant new things.
Very good. Mark is sneaky brilliant and an epic karaoke singer. You just need to know that before we ever get going. Mark is a fantastic guy. Yvi, thank you.
These are his greatest qualifications for everything that he does.
Absolutely. Sneaky brilliant and amazing at karaoke. We had a lot of fun at General Conference when we needed that lift in the middle of everything.
That's right.
Singing some karaoke. So.
Love it. Yeah, I'm Yvi Martin. I am the lead pastor at Platte Woods United Methodist Church, which is in the northern suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri, in the Missouri Annual Conference.
Very good. Yeah. Yvi is from the Horizon Texas Conference originally.
That's right. That's right.
Born and raised Arlington. And
Vikings.
My parents are still here.
Yep.
First Church Arlington. So, yeah.
Very good.
Texas roots.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. Alan.
Sure. Alan McGrath. I grew up in the Central Texas Conference in Arlington at New World United Methodist Church, and for about 15 years have been down south, way far away where they don't ask you to be on committees in Fort Worth.
Well, there you go.
Until Zoom started, and now I'm on all of them. Yeah. First United Methodist Church, Georgetown. Love it. Love that congregation.
We have been trying to get Alan on the podcast for a very long time, and something about a 3.5 hour drive that is just... he insists it's too hard to make it happen.
My rider is too long, has too many green M&Ms.
Green M&Ms, relocation of the studio to Georgetown. It's just too much. But you're here today, and we're here today in part because we were all in a TMF group together, right? That's the work of the Texas Methodist Foundation in cultivating leadership. Brought us together as a part of the Courageous Leadership Imperative. We're a small group of the about 20 or so of us that were gathered together to begin with. We've been walking together for how long? 5 years now? Something like that?
5.5, I think.
5.5.
I started in 2020.
Oh, man. I was in my 30s when this thing started. That was a long time ago.
Good for you, Daniel.
Good for me. You're right. But there's been a lot of really good things along the way, right? We gathered in 2020, right, in the midst of a worldwide crisis that we all kind of got to be connected in and experience. I'm curious, what have y'all experienced as a gift of this connectional system, right, that connects us not just in our annual conferences, but across our annual conferences?
In my first appointment, Joe Carmichael, who was my senior pastor, would tell me all the time, he said, if TMF, which is the Texas Methodist Foundation, if they ever invite you to do anything, you do it immediately. Don't even question it. And so it took such a long time to finally get an invitation from TMF. So when they invited us into this cohort, I didn't realize what a gift that was going to be. Yeah. And now I'm have the gift of actually being in another TMF cohort with Mike Bonham, and it's been incredible to share and do things together. And I was thinking about I was thinking about COVID and how we all had to figure out that together with, do we mask or do we not mask?
Right.
Even to the point of, what are we going to do on Christmas Eve when it's time to blow out the candles? How are we going to do that? And to share that together was such a gift to me, because you're not having to create anything by yourself, because you've got this team around you.
And it's one of the things that happens when we live in community, right? There's shared kind of emotional connection, right? We don't walk through a crisis by ourselves, but there's also wisdom and brilliance that we can encounter and intersect. We were talking just yesterday in our sanctuary at Martin about how, what my people experienced as the best stewardship series I've ever done was something I stole from you, right? With an acknowledgement that far too often we are impalas, and God's invitation is to take a leap, right? We're able to do far more than we could ever imagine on our own, but we get stuck by that impediment of trust. And that you brilliantly demonstrated for your people. Tell us a little bit about your great leap in the midst of that.
Yeah, it just kind of happened by happenstance. That the thing about the Impala, if they can't see where they're going to land, they don't jump, even if they're physically capable of it. And I was talking about that in a message, and our stage is about 5 feet off the ground, and we had this 3-foot fence that was built up. And at the time, I was foolish enough to think that even though I was in my early 40s, I still thought I could do things like my early 20s. So I thought I'd stepped back in the middle of the sermon, a couple of steps from the fence, and I said, like, friends, I could easily just run and jump over this thing and land on my feet. And a couple of people in the front row immediately said, no, don't do it, like they thought I was really going to do it. And I was so hurt by their lack of belief in my athleticism that I quickly brushed it away with a passing phrase of like, oh gosh, guys, I'm just joking. I'll do that later this week, thinking I'm buying myself time and I'll never do it and it doesn't matter. Well, after the service, people were like, what day this week are you going to do it? Right. And so then when I started getting to it, I thought, I could really hurt myself here. Let's put a mini trampoline. Let's put a blow-up mattress on the end. And that's how it happened.
And it turned out amazing, right? You went for it, right? And landed, and then it sparked and it made real, I think, that invitation to your community. I experienced the same thing. Like, my folks were really anxious about me jumping over that fence, right? To the point where, like, my 15-year-old was the one who came and shot video for me because nobody else wanted to be in the building in case it went bad. But we saw our community, 63 families, take a leap in their giving in response to that series, right? And people were like, where did you come up with this? And I'm like, Mark, because it's a bit of borrowed brilliance, right? And you shared, you didn't make it up from whole cloth. You encountered it somewhere else along the way and were able to.
There's so many different things that we borrow from other folks, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yvi was at a church before this called The Gathering, which is a multi-site in Missouri, and our church at the time that I was at was ready to take that step, but we had no idea how to do it. They had done all the pieces. So with one phone call, I learned the pieces, and we just tried to replicate what they had already done. And it's nice in the Methodist connection to think, I don't have to do any of this alone. If I have something I'm curious about, chances are somebody's already taken a swing. They can either teach me from the things that went well, or they can teach me from the things to avoid.
Yeah.
Well, and then you think about, we're content creators, right? You think about the amount of content that a pastor, a church produces in a given week, and we're all doing it. And at the same time, there's nothing new under the sun. So like, I found early on in my, as a lead pastor, I was hesitant to borrow and not just, create from my own well. Like, I should be creating sermon series. I need to come up with all of this, which I still, I enjoy doing that.
Right.
But I have let go of a lot of my own pride of just borrowing, like, hey, that sermon series was really great that so-and-so did. Like, I'm just going to take that and do it myself. And other people call us too and are like, hey, that sermon series you did on whatever. But just being open about the vast amount of content we create and not having to recreate it all the time, but really sharing and just a good idea. Take the good idea.
The beauty of that is you can ask the question, where does this idea meet my people?
Right.
Right? Because you're not taking a whole, you're not taking somebody else's manuscript and going, I now,
it's my voice. It's our
words. It's your
words.
voice. It's your experience. It's your community's lived reality. But the idea can find its new manifestation, right?
But
You belly flopped on your leap over the fence. I stuck the landing on my 2 feet, right? It's two different expressions of the same thing.
That's the difference in athleticism. Just pointed out right there. But at the same time, weren't you talking yesterday about the walk to Jerusalem? Was that you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anybody can do that, right?
All of
Take
us
that
were writing
concept-
down. We're like, we're taking that.
Right.
Yeah. And that's just a simple invitation to invite your people to a shared spiritual practice, right? For a specific season. It is the gift of being in community and connection, right? And I think we get in trouble, right? My Enneagram 3 kicks in from time to time, and I'm like, I want to, generate the best idea
do
of
this
my own, and I can do it all by
myself.
myself, right?
Yeah.
The inner 3-year-old, I can do it all by myself. And yet, how often do our people suffer? Do our communities suffer because we had to do it
Sure.
all by
Well,
ourselves?
there's a value of our time too. In my Mike Bonham TMF group just 2 weeks ago, I was on Zoom with my group, and I thought, I'm about to do staff check-ins, and I don't have a really good set of questions to ask. So instead of spending a morning trying to really write through and write out staff questions, somebody from the Rio, Texas conference said, I already sent it to you. It's in your inbox. And I printed it and sent it to my staff, and it was done. So, that kind of leveraging the wisdom that's around you.
Imagine if you said to the church worship leader, every week you have to create new music.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But we think that's silly. But then when it comes to like sermons or Bible studies or, serving the community, we feel like we got to create all that from scratch. It's silly.
That's an interesting, I had never thought about it from that angle. That's an interesting angle on it.
We like the greatest hits, right?
Yeah.
Just think of like a Dorito.
Oh,
You take the parts you like, leave out the riboflavin.
Right. Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Good to go.
You're good to go. It is a fascinating deal because what people want musically is the greatest hits, right? You introduce a new song and you got to have like a 3-minute preamble about how this is a new song and it's going to be okay. You're going to, you can learn it. It's a great gift. It's going to be good. And then you've got to teach it like 6 times before it sticks, right? And yet, when we approach preaching, the intention is it's got to be whole cloth, brand new, all on your own. It's one of the places we borrow brilliance. We borrow it in the administrative aspect of our churches because there's some folks in the connection that are incredible administrators. God bless them, right? And then there's those of us that do it so that we can do the other parts of the job that we feel more deeply connected to and compelled by, right?
Yeah. I think there's something too about like borrowing people's voices. Maybe borrowing is not the right word, but amplifying people's voices within the connection. Like, it helps my congregation listen differently because it's not my voice. But we have a colleague. She's been in this group who does a ton with emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And so like having her come to my church and talk with my staff and like share. I'm literally borrowing her brilliance with her voice to, we could do that outside of the church world, but to leverage voices that are within our connection, clergy or laity who are experts in a certain thing. We have another friend who does strengths finders, but like borrowing their voice to come in and bless my congregation or our community, I think that's something I've been able to lean into in the Methodist connection that I don't know. I don't know about other denominations. I don't know how they do that sort of thing, but it's just an easy phone call. Cause it's like, she's my friend. She's my colleague. Come on over and do
sometimes
this
it's
thing.
like a program like that.
Yeah.
Other times it's just generic wisdom.
Yeah.
Like I have this guy that's a good buddy of mine, and he has a classic slow play move, which I have a quick brain. I have a faster mouth than my brain. And so both get me in trouble in a lot of ways. But he has this slow play move that he does where when he thinks he already knows something, he still asks you the question so that you can define it from your experience. And so when someone comes to him with a problem they have with the church, he doesn't act like he knows any prior information. He just keeps digging and digging and digging and asking more questions and being curious. And half the time what they're describing isn't actually the thing. It's something completely different. And he keeps himself out of all sorts of trouble because he has them unravel the onion themselves.
Yeah.
So for me, you tell me like the first layer of the onion and I start digging my own hole.
Sure. Well, because we want to fix it, right? Or we want to give a response to it, and we end up responding to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Or not.
So for
hitting
me,
the
that's
thing
like
that is-
wisdom, like a way to show up or a disposition, not necessarily like
Yeah.
a program to run or whatever. But
That's really powerful. And there is a distinction between brilliance that we borrow and wisdom that gets shared, right? One is an idea and one is kind of an experiential piece. Yeah. It was in the midst of crisis, right? That I had a former senior pastor, not my current senior pastor at that moment, share with me just a simple invitation that has echoed through my life in lots of other moments of crisis, right? The simple invitation was to show up to be faithful, and to trust God. That's not like, it doesn't hit the mark of brilliance to be shared because it's so radically simple.
Super
right?
wise.
But in that moment of crisis, and in the COVID moment of crisis, and in like every other moment of crisis, be present, be faithful, right? And do your best to trust that it's not all on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the other thing that we can be prone to think, that the weight is ours to carry, right? Where, the Bible's full of reminders again and again that it's not yours to carry, right? But we still want to put it on our shoulders.
Yeah.
So where has that wisdom met you? I mean, we saw the beautiful gift of that slowing down.
Yeah.
I think about so this particular group formed in 2020, which was the same year as everything else was happening in the world. And I was getting moved. I was moving into my first lead pastor position. I'd been an associate in 2 different churches for 11 years. So to have this group, literally I didn't know anything. I knew some things, but I hadn't done it before, right? So this group became like my phone call, my text, my for literally anything that was happening. How do I do this? How do I manage staff? What do I do? And this dynamic is going on. So there was the practical nature of it, but also just how did I need to show up? How was I embodying a lead pastor role that I could learn from you all, which, I have colleagues within my own conference I could learn from, but something about expanding that net even wider across the jurisdiction, because you all don't know my people. You don't know my colleagues. You do, but, but to have that, here's just some thoughts about what posture you can take, or own your leadership, own your authority, be confident, you've got this, that sort of thing. Everything from, the stuff of COVID and how to come back from that. But then also I had not managed a staff of 20 people before. And I was dealing with a culture of, we are divided on a lot of things, and how do we bring them together in unity? So being able to pull from, broadly speaking, here's some thoughts about how you step into that space it changed everything. It really shaped my pastoral ministry. So being able to not have to do that alone, really powerful.
Isn't ministry in our careers just picking up little gems along the way?
Oh, yeah.
And putting them in our bags.
Yep.
And the more people you're with, the more people you have to offer those gems. I had a friend of mine, pastor, years ago, help me reframe angry people in your church. That's my view. Yeah. These people that are always upset, they're always frustrated. And his response was, those are people who love their church deeply.
Right.
Start there.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay, so that person who's really angry about the budget line or the way this is, or the pew color that's about to change.
Side eye.
That's happening. Is to start with, this isn't someone that's against me. It's someone that deeply loves their church.
Right.
And you can also say, and loves God. But that's helped me reframe. And I've carried that little gem around with me over and over again, and tried to share it myself with others and put it in their bag. But that's the value of doing this together, is you get, Mark is really good with thinking through staffing. And so we were in a hot tub in Austin,
I do.
talking about staffing and staff issues, and how can I think of this? And Mark was like, oh, well, this is the answer. I'm like, wow, it would have taken me 2 weeks to get to that. And there it was. So
if I took the 2 things you guys said and put them together, both of those combined to do a little nugget of wisdom I was given, this moving to the lead pastor for the first time thing, and this angry person thing. I'm a relational person, and so moving to be a lead pastor and forming these relationships, and for me, investing massive amounts of social capital and thinking we're all on the same page and this is going great, and then having somebody that I deeply care about come and just eviscerate me over something super benign, and just it would crush me, and it would take me days to recover until a wise person in my church said, Mark, they're not angry at you, they're angry at the chair you sit in. And I had never thought about this distinction between that, because I was personalizing the fact that I'm called to lead this church at this time. Anybody leading the church making a difficult call here would have gotten feedback from this person in this way. Yeah, so it's not Mark and this other person's name. It's this other person's name and the chair I happen to be sitting in at the moment. And then I was able to kind of disassociate from the problem and be like, oh, I got it. Yeah, every leader faces that.
I had a very similar interaction in the midst of COVID, right? because that's the time where we're all wrestling with what kind of parameters do we put in place and all that. But our people, the angry ones, were prone to be feeling radically disempowered, right? So much of their life was outside of their control. And church is typically a place, for at least the folks who were most angry with me in that time, where they had a level of authority and control or power, right?
Their voice is heard.
Their voice was heard and valued, right? And it wasn't that we didn't hear it or value it, but we just made a decision in that moment that felt contrary to what they were trying to offer. But the expression of their anger and their frustration was more about a life-wide sense of disempowerment or lack of control than it was, Hawkins, you're an idiot and unfaithful, right? That impulse toward personalization is real. The other place where that kind of thing fascinates me is the folks within our church, and I can be this way sometimes, where there's a deep passion for one thing and an inability to see the broader picture, right? I'm a 30,000-foot guy generally, right? What's the big picture? And I had somebody help me reframe that to say, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on what they don't get, or are you focusing on where passion is radically stirring within them, right? And how you choose to see that will impact how you walk alongside folks in that way, right? So instead of going, why can't you? They celebrate what they are doing and what they are experiencing in the midst of that. And that has helped shape. And that's just a shared piece of wisdom. One of the other things, all of us are ordained elders sitting at this table. Mark gets to sit on the cabinet, so you get to be a part of making these kinds of decisions. But one of the other things that happens is that kind of shared experience is not just with our clergy colleagues, right? But with the communities we come alongside and serve through the itineration process, right? All of us at our ordination said we would serve where we are sent. And we believe that, the cabinet is working in sync with ultimately, how God is alive and at work in our midst, right? And sometimes it works and sometimes it's not, and sometimes we miss here and all of that. But that God is at work in that process. Of the communities you've served and encountered, I'd imagine that there's a piece of each one of them that sticks with you as you go from place to place, right? I think of, West Keller is where I planted, right? And we poured, you talking about pour yourself into something, poured myself into that. And after about a year and a half, 2 years, we had to pull that second campus back on alongside the main campus. I was heartbroken, right? At 30 years old, it was the first thing I'd cared about in my life that I'd failed at, right? And yet the appointment after that, the community that met me there, received me as their pastor, not as the failed church planter, not as the person with all. And they celebrated the ministry we did. They gave me space to heal and grow, and they loved my family incredibly well, right? That church isn't United Methodist anymore, but I will forever be thankful for who they are because of the way they help shape who I get to be today. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so Meridian, Texas will sit with me for a very long time. And it's one of those communities, there's 1,800 people in the town. It's a small county seat. If apart from ministry, I would have had no reason to ever live there, right? And yet part of who I am today is because of the time I spent in community with them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The thing I keep coming back to in our thoughts is trying to get these nuggets to people, trying to get them in these communities early. And so when I think about zip codes that have formed me, as I think about those places that have been so formative for me, I think about the Texas A&M Wesley Foundation.
Yeah.
So I think that's 77840 if you're playing along at home.
Bingo.
But that was a space where all of these green leaders got to try out ministry tools. And we got to teach Bible studies for the first time. And we got to lead others for the first time and make so many mistakes. And our campus pastor, Max Mertz, who just retired a handful of years ago, his brilliance was allowing this space where we can play leadership in ministry and learn together and make horrendous errors and lead with absolute ego, thinking we're the best thing ever. And we all learned. And from that space came a whole lot of great pastors and lay people all over the state of Texas. How quickly can we get people who are new in ministry into a TMF group or into a group where they're sharing? I think that's real important as I look at this.
Mm-hmm. So I am not the most theologically predisposed person, right? If I have a choice of a conversation topic, I'm not going to start with Dionysius or something like that. And so seminary was a little bit harder for me because everybody was so wrapped around the academic side of it. And we had at my seminary, we had this group of folks that took themselves very seriously in terms of the sacraments, like really seriously. I think they were called the Order of St. Luke.
They are called the Order of St. Luke. That is accurate.
Yeah. And
I learned about them 2 days ago.
Some
Yes, I love the Order of
some
St.
folks
Luke.
that were not.
They were at Perkins too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Some folks that were not in that group at the seminary that I went to called them the communion Nazis.
Oh, okay.
Because they were very strict about how it ought to go. And so as I'm learning about this, and that's kind of not my disposition, and wrestling with what is theologically true and what is super important and what is context specific, my field ed appointment was a smaller church next to a community of adults who were differently abled in many different ways. And so, like, during the week, I was learning if they don't say the liturgy this way, and if they don't confess, and if they don't blah, 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 blah. And then on Sunday, we would have these people who were not gifted with the ability to confess and understand what that meant. And could they take communion, right? That kind of thing. And so it was so fascinating to know in theory and then in practice and how they did and didn't go together from different times. And so that was a fascinating concept because it was easy during the week to get in your head about something. And then on the weekend, then you meet these people who are all just learning together and wanting to experience Jesus. And so that experience, it was in Chicago, that experience in that community and zip code really formed me in this stuff is really important, and yet these people are more important. And so that was kind of my version of, healing on the Sabbath or working on the Sabbath or something where you understand the concept,
Right.
but how it plays out with humans is really important and different. So,
Yeah, I'm thinking about your question and just the power, like just wanting local churches to hear the power they have in shaping a pastor in her pastoral identity. Yes, we go into communities to lead. That's what we're called to. That's what we're appointed to do. But so much, like I am so much the better for all of my church communities, and they have, they've changed who I am. They've shaped who I am, and I think I cannot remember the zip code of Springfield, Missouri. Why can't it's like
I don't know it either.
63039.
It's down in the comments below.
I should remember. Oh my gosh, this is
that
terrible.
right? That
There's
is
right. You did
There's
it right.
too
Good.
much other information that's
channel-
gone into my brain since then. And maybe it's cliche, but it was
Look it
my
up and
first.
share in the comments.
Please let me know what my zip code was in Springfield. There's more than one, but anyway, so it was my first appointment, which may be somewhat cliche, but it was what it did for me. And I think about like, so I had my robe and my stole for the traditional service, and a little girl came up to me after a service. I had presided at communion, and she gave me a drawing of myself, like in my robe and stole with the bread and the cup on the table. And it was just this beautiful picture. And I was like, she sees me as a pastor. Like I wasn't even sure I saw myself as a pastor yet. Not because my journey into pastoral ministry was different. Not that I didn't think women could be pastors. I just that wasn't a big part of my own spiritual formation. So I realized like this little girl sees like this is just her normal. I'm a pastor. I'm a pastor. Yeah. So that was really formative for me in like coming to understand who I was as a pastor and what that meant for our community. Like she didn't question it. Like, no, this is just my pastor. So I had to stop questioning. Like, oh no, I'm just a pastor. So I think, I was an associate pastor there, and my senior pastor there gave me so much latitude, like really gave me a lot of trust to sort of spread my wings. And that congregation was so generous to help me start to believe about myself. Like, oh yeah, no, you're a pastor.
Well, and that moment was meaningful and powerful for you, but also for that little girl and for her family.
Yeah.
Right. I remember after Meridian, we moved to Cleburne, and my associate and my youth director were female leaders in the life of the church. And our 5-year-old came home one day after going to church and took the Legos out and built a pulpit. And like I wasn't anywhere to be found in that. But she had a Melissa and she had a Mary Ann on her Lego church front. And just to be able to see that 5-year-old internalizing,
Mm-hmm.
if this is something God calls me to do,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And she knew her grandmama was a preacher, right? But it was watching Melissa and
Right.
Marianne do it week after week after
Mhm.
week
Yeah.
after week.
There's a difference between
That
a
was-
story and a formative
Yeah.
ritual and rhythm. Yeah.
Well, and the fact that it keeps speaking to you years later. So
Mm-hmm.
15 years after I'm at this church in seminary where there are people that have some sort of mental block that makes it hard for them to understand what confessing means, then COVID hits, right? And so if you can do communion and liturgy, its importance is up in the air based on who the person is, and you're trying to negotiate that, then the idea of can you take communion together over the internet
Right.
becomes something that you can negotiate in the same way. So you're trying to uphold what people like the Order of St. Luke want communion to mean,
Yeah.
while also understanding your context is going to dictate some kind of circumstances, and how can you make the sacrament as available to people in as many different ways as possible. So it's funny because when COVID hits and my staff says, how are we going to do communion? The first thing back in my brain is that zip code from seminary and that
Yep.
experience on communion being accessible for all. So it keeps going, right?
It does keep going. And it not only over time keeps going, but it connects us across time, because that experience shaped how you interacted in that moment, but also how you were connected to others in that moment, right? You were able then to be a part of the imparting of wisdom or the sharing of brilliance across the community, right? That's the gift, I think, of United Methodism. Whether we're clergy, whether we're lay leaders, whether we're 5-year-old little girls sitting in churches, we are shaped and formed by a community that is not limited to our local community, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why we not only talk about in Hollywood in the 90s, they had 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Where everybody was in a movie with,
Right.
the United Methodist Church, right? Our lay people could walk into your church in Missouri and 7 Degrees of United Methodism find people they're connected to.
It's more like 3,
Yeah.
maybe 2.
we do a thing in our conference where when you get ordained, they tie the ordination trail all the way back to Wesley.
Yeah.
And that's always fun to see graphically. They
Yeah.
show that.
Yeah.
And how many different steps it takes. And
Yeah. Well, and for our laity too. I mean, all clergy have this experience. Probably you have your own versions of it. But like my first church in Springfield, a 6th grader in that congregation is now an associate pastor at the second church I served, the Gathering. Like she grew up, she went to seminary,
Yeah.
and then like kids from that congregation in Springfield now have grown up, and I'm baptizing their kids. Well, not quite yet, but we're getting close in my Kansas City congregation because they've moved there. Like there's the connection for the clergy, but also our laity have places to land as they relocate. And like I'm now someone's pastor for a second time in a completely different place at a different stage of life. Like that is that's powerful. That's body of Christ, right? Like that is a way to live life that is rich. It allows movement. It allows diversity in your life, but also like this foundation that you know who your people are.
Or you're
you know who to care
pastoring
for.
somebody's parents that you
Yes.
served earlier. Or in my current context at Georgetown, I've got people whose children were on Glen Lake staff with me and with Tracy, with my wife. And I have to apologize for who I was then and all that. But it's,
Right.
you know,
You remember me
it's
when.
just all so tied together.
Yeah. That's the beautiful gift of it. And that's where I'm thankful, as we kind of put a bow on this, to return back to where you helped us begin, Alan, with Joe Carmichael's invitation to you, right? If TMF ever invites you to do something, do it. I think we can expand that idea a little more broadly to say, whether you are new into the connection, right, as a first-time church member or a new clergy person, or you've been here a long time, say yes to those invitations to being connected within the broader community, because it's going to be a gift. You can't always identify where it's going to begin, right? Our first gathering as a TMF group was on Zoom. Our second gathering was on Zoom on January 6th of 2021. Lord knows that we didn't expect that day to be what it was, right? And yet we processed some of that together, and we've been through a whole lot more since. And it began with a simple yes to an invitation, a yes to community. At our local church, when we receive somebody in membership, we use some of the standard words, although if there are communion joining word Nazis, they probably would not be perfectly okay with the way we do it. But part of what we celebrate is that in the uniting of your life with the church, you're saying, this motley crew of folks who've decided to follow Jesus is my motley crew of folks who've decided to follow Jesus. And I want to walk with them in the midst of this.
Mm-hmm.
And part of walking with is you don't leave that the same person you started.
Yeah.
And the system or the community doesn't leave it the same as you started because you are walking with it too.
And I don't think that should be a surprise. I think God's greatest strategy to reach a person is other people. So why would we be surprised when I get taught by any of the three of you? That was God's strategy from the beginning, right? To put each other in each other's way.
Yeah.
Build each other up. So I don't think it's any shock that somebody's kid is later somebody's dad, that's somebody's cousin that got baptized, and it's all connected because we're all just on the journey to Christ together. So we should expect to overlap all the time.
Yeah.
We're just holding on to the thread for a little while.
Yeah.
And then we stop. And then the humbling part of that is that then we go on to another church, and that church before us, they seem to do just fine. You know?
Without us. Yeah. I mean,
Maybe better in my case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alan, that's a little too soon. Melissa's just hosted the last podcast
Oh,
and
that's
sat in
true.
this chair, for the second time in
was a
100
good
and
run,
something
Daniel.
episodes. I know it's a good run. It's a good run. Oh man. But so true, right? Because the church is not our church, it's Christ's church. And it's the church of the community, and those two work together for really powerful and really good experiences and expressions of what God is doing in our midst. Thank y'all for taking time to jump on the podcast in the midst of a week away from your kind of standard working, and as we seek to learn and grow from each other. I know I'm blessed, and I pray that our Pod Strangely Warm community is blessed by your presence today. So thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Pleasure.
Hey, Dana.
And thank you for joining us this week on Pod Strangely Warmed. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins. This has been Pod Strangely Warmed. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more. Yep.
Oh my gosh, he's totally gonna do that. It's so hard.
Do it at least once.
If I pull a Hawkins and ask a question that's 37 seconds long, because
He loves those.
I'll just lean over and I'll go.
I wonder if Drake May hangs out with Drake.
Drake May.
Only in. Dun, dun, dun.
Nails are terrible.
Oh my gosh. Dude, I don't know what that podcast was about. Did you see the girl with those nails? What the hell was she thinking?
Yeah.
They're real bad.
I'm glad to not be the only one with Enneagram 3 energy today. That's
We're
good.
here in the Texas Wesleyan campus, live with Daniel Hawkins. I'm Lakshmi Singh. Sorry.
He's gonna be a mess. This is gonna be
All
pure
it's gonna
chaos.
have
If
here's
it's awful, we will just go.
It doesn't
we tried.
have- it doesn't
and
have to go
it's gonna
anywhere.
be great, but here's the problem. The only problem is it's just extra work for Dustin. That's all.
Yeah.
So we apologize in advance,
Yeah,
brother.
Sorry, Dustin.
Dustin's just excited to hear voices other than mine. This poor soul listens to me more
Yeah.
than any person on earth.